And as a woman, there's a balance to be struck between being tough and being a bitch.
Politicians don't understand people who do good simply because it's right. It makes them nervous.
Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. Yep, it's August 7th. We're going to get into Tim Walz. The choice was made yesterday while we were on air, while we were rolling live. So we're going to discuss the man. But we're also going to discuss some of the bigger implications of choosing a progressive radical for the ticket. And that's what I'm going to say about that. Got a lot to cover. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. And most people seem to be focused in on the Kamala fake AstroTurf excitement. There's other things happening in the world. There's some revelations that are being dropped out there. We're going to get into a bunch of them. If you guys saw the show notes, you already know where we're going. Before we get started with the show, let's say thanks to my friends over at Catholic Vote who are appalled at the what they called most anti-Catholic ticket ever. CatholicVote.org/give if you guys want to support my friends over there. New article over in the Loop, or you can go to CatholicVote.org/loop. You're kind of getting CatholicVote.org. It's kind of all those places. You can follow them on social media at Catholic Vote. We've got a new episode of Not Between the Lines, but the new iteration, which is coming out, I think, tomorrow. So that should be the case. And we're also going to be off air tomorrow because we're going to fly and do Timcast. If you guys want to read this article, it's got some quotes from Catholic Vote President Brian Walsh. He called it the most anti-Catholic ticket ever, from his COVID lockdowns to the mandates to the stay-at-home orders, some of the harshest in the nations. Yeah, interesting choice. You can read all about Catholic Vote's take on it. If you guys are a Christian, if you are Christian, I don't know how you can support this ticket. I don't know how anybody can support this ticket. You got to really love some pretty wild things and hate a lot of America. Anyway, check out my friends over there on that website. And if you're not getting the Loop, you guys are missing out on a pretty good email. So make sure that you are getting the Loop. Just loop yourself in. That's how you do it. Let's get started. I want to go back in time a little bit. I found this article the other day when somebody asked me for a quote on something. And I thought, well, I've already talked about this. And then I realized that it wasn't actually attributed to me. This is coming from October of 2022. Brandon Dre, formerly of the Daily Wire at that time, then later with Fox, now a freelance writer. And if you guys are looking for a good reporter, reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with Brandon. He's looking for some more work to pile on his plate. FBI whistleblower leaks document to Project Veritas showing the agency allegedly labeling misinformation an election crime. So they did a whole piece on that. If you guys do not remember this was back when Project Veritas was not on social media, at least not in the way that they are right now. They were still censored from Twitter. This is pre-Elon Musk takeover. It was right in the as it was happening. Harmeet Dillon was the one who ended up sharing this in the biggest way and got the most views. But I pulled this thing out because, this is the original document I'm showing you some screenshots from, which I brought to Congress because somebody brought it to me in my little group of FBI whistleblowers who knew that there was a problem when the FBI has non-sworn federal agents, people who have no basis or understanding for constitutional law. They are the ones that wrote this. This was an analytical piece that was given as a quote-unquote cheat sheet. And it was punched out, if my memory serves, by a group that was called, what were they called? Give me 1 second here, because I actually do want to read. They were called something about the Election Crime Task Force or the Political Influence Task Force. There we go. Let me just pull it up real quick. It is, it's from FBI headquarters, the PCU. Yeah, the Political Crimes Unit, or the Public Corruption Unit. That's what it was called. So these are all analysts. These are non-FBI agents, which means no understanding of constitutional law necessarily required for their jobs. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't know that the First Amendment prohibits them from categorizing things that are not crimes as crimes. And what you're seeing on the screen are two things that are most disconcerting. And for me, I think they tie into what we talked about yesterday, which is why we're going to talk about it more today. The situation with this group called GARM, when federal dollars get mixed in and big corporations want to go out there and censor your speech. Misinformation, which we've talked about plenty of times here, is accidentally misleading or false information. You say something, you believe it's true, but it's not. That is not an election crime, folks. That's not a crime at all. That's called welcome to America. You're allowed to have an opinion. You're allowed to be wrong. Many of you are all the time. I get your emails. I get your DMs. I know that you don't know what you're talking about sometimes. That's okay. You're allowed to. It's no big deal. It's not a crime. And disinformation is deliberately putting out false information. Maybe it's satire. Maybe you're actually trying to lie to people. You're allowed to do that too. There's plenty of quote unquote news organizations that do that all the time. Disinformation campaigns on social media are used to deliberately confuse, trick, or upset the public. So what? What is the federal nexus to that? What federal law are they violating? The answer is none. Absolutely none. The FBI sent this out to agents so that they would know what to look for. And that doesn't mean that agents did anything about it. What it means is it tells you that the agency that I used to work for is 100% on board with pushing leftist, lunatic narratives. And they are driven from headquarters, and they are driven by non-agents. And all of that means to you that I continue to sit in this camp that does not necessarily believe that we're going to have at least a free and fair election the way that we would like to think. It's not over yet. Just because she's chosen a complete radical, just because Kamala picked someone that is pissing off all the right people on the right and making all the wrong people on the left happy, does not mean that we should be phoning this one in. And a little bit further on this, we talked about it yesterday. This group called GARM, Jim Jordan's committee, did a little piece. Ben Shapiro has called them out. This is an editorial piece coming from the New York Post editorial board. And I always love their headlines. They're always good, aren't they? Fascist creep Rob Rakowitz wants to control what you read. Good on the House for exposing him. This is their take. I'm going to do a little bit of reading from that piece for you. The group is called the Global Alliance for Responsible Media. You've never heard of it. It's a secret and bureaucratic group that nonetheless wants to decide what you read, what you hear, what you see online. It's an initiative from the World Federation of Advertisers, which is a cartel that basically exerts control over some 90% of the global marketing dollars spent, and possibly illegally used their big bucks leverage to go after free speech online. This is the House Judiciary Committee report. It's pretty simple. They just basically go after people that they don't like. Most of those people end up being conservatives. They went after a bunch of familiar targets, including Twitter. They tried to pull money from there. They were pushing a boycott. They censored and tried to push Facebook, and were actually able to get Donald Trump taken down from some of the ad campaigns, so he doesn't have access to the same platforms as his opponent. They went after Spotify because of Joe Rogan. There's a lot on here. And lest you think these people are not totally evil, the political left thinks that going after them is actually a war on free enterprise. For the first time ever, they've decided to side with a quote-unquote business, even though the business is basically just an influence operation. So you see Jahan Jones, who is out of the Joy Reid Readout blog over on MSNBC. I'm just giving you guys a little taste of some of the things, the coverage from left and right. On the Post side, they think, good, these people need to be exposed. On MSNBC, on our hard left, they're talking about how Elon Musk is suing them for withdrawing advertising, and that's a strike against free enterprise. Since when did these people ever care about the market? They went on to talk about how these are unjustifiable accusations, that they're using the power of government, that they're using the power of their large amounts of money that are behind Elon Musk and the sort of the clout that he wields because of his political platform. And all of that is colluding with conservatives against the choice not to advertise. No, it's not. This is extortion. This is what these people have done. Unless you think that we're just making up how bad these folks are, let me just give you one little taste. This is from the World Economic Forum's webpage. The Global Alliance for Responsible Media, they claim, is a program that they support. And here's from Influence Watch, a little snippet saying in 2021, GARM, G-A-R-M, launched a measurement for digital brand safety, which is used to chart progress on removing harmful content from ad-supported media partnerships. They love their lists, don't they? The leftists, the progressives, the commies, they really love their lists. And if you're on that list, they're going to shut you down. Partners in this endeavor include the World Economic Forum, their platform for shaping the future of media, entertainment, and sport. And they had NBC Universal, MSNBC, Facebook, Google, which is to say Alphabet. If Facebook's on board, then you know that Instagram is part of that. That's a meta company, right? All of these groups, all the big dogs got together and decided who can or can't get money. This is why that article that we talked about yesterday, which we read the NPR version, but it's across the board, Google has been adjudicated to be a monopoly in federal court, which is to say that they've taken the power and their influence and they are fighting against free competition. And this is one of the ways you do it. You just make sure nobody has access to advertisers. And if you control the advertising dollars, then it's not possible to be a feasible media organization. I started doing some digging even into my Rumble account the other day because I was talking to Tracy Beans about, monetizing these podcasts. And some of you guys get a sense. That's part of how this thing works. The reason why our sponsors are so important is because we see, even on the right, there is a taste to promote certain things and not others. That's not going to be surprising to you. Our comment section was actually full of it on yesterday's video. You guys can go watch that video if you want to see a little commentary on that. I'm not going to belabor it. But there is a choice, and they do exert financial pressure. Luckily, we've had people step into the gap. One of them is Catholic Vote. Others are some of the affiliates that come in. They want to be associated, and others are just those who pay us money, and they're not products that we have a problem with. If you didn't see our little bit on gold yesterday, check that out too. If you're thinking about putting your money into a gold IRA. If you see how much money is spread around from your money, and that's the advertising costs and then how they have to pay a salesperson and the percentage of commission, there's a lot of money that is being made from your money. Just consider that. That's the reason why I won't do it. I just knew when they had that much margin to hand out to other people, it means that they weren't giving a good deal to the consumer. GARM used its advertisers to push for the concept of safety online. It's always about safety and what they call the sustainability of media. Again, that's from Influence Watch. All of these things are to say that they are not interested in a fair election, right? They're not interested in a free exchange of ideas and may the best ideas win in the marketplace of ideas. None of this is how it works. And you can tell it because they have this AstroTurf candidate. There's nobody out there that is excited about Kamala Harris, not in any real sense. That's why they make these weird videos. I don't know who the market for this video is. I have no idea. We're going to play it because we have to know that there are people that are getting this and they're like clapping for themselves for this absolutely retarded video of Kamala Harris. Here's what you have to believe if you're watching this and you're doing so without taking on the fact that it's incredibly staged. If you watch this video and you're like, oh my God, it's amazing. Like, look at these people. They're just having this honest conversation. There's a multi-camera setup for a supposedly impromptu phone call asking for this. It's the same garbage that Kamala did with BET, where she's like, I'm out there on them streets, girl. She doesn't talk like that. Kamala Harris doesn't talk like that at all. She went to high school in Montreal. She's like functionally grew up as a teenage Canadian. But she's trying to do this weird black voice because she is not a chameleon. She's just a fraud. She's a fake. This is a fake. This is a fake setup. And then we're supposed to believe that Tim Walz, who's the governor, just hangs around sitting on his bench in his entryway, getting ready to put his shoes on, which seem awfully white and new and really dorky looking. That guy is just hanging around waiting. And then he's also got a camera crew ready to film him third person while he takes a call from Kamala that's totally unannounced and unprepared. No, they sent in camera crews for this weird crap. So anyway, we're going to watch this all the way through. I want you to kind of listen with your ears, but if you're watching the show, watch Kamala Harris's facial expressions and you tell me, Does her face agree with her words? Or does she look like someone forced this on her and she is in a tremendous amount of pain? She's also a terrible actress, so there's that too. But here we go.
Hi, this is Tim.
It's Kamala Harris. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Madam Vice President.
Listen, I want you to do this with me. Let's do this together. Would you be my running mate and let's get this thing on the road?
I would be honored, Madam Vice President. The joy that you're bringing back to the country, the enthusiasm that's out there, it'll be a privilege to take this with you across the country.
Well, let me tell you, I have just the utmost respect for you. I have really enjoyed our work together. You understand our country. You have dedicated yourself to our country in so many different and beautiful ways. And we're going to do this. We're going to win. And we're going to unify our country and remind everyone that we are fighting for the future for everyone. So let's get out there and get this done, okay?
Let's do it. Do the work in front of us. Let's win this thing.
That's right. All right, buddy. I'll see you soon. Take care. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Oh, it's so real. It's just how they talk. What did you think they talked like? It's truly nauseating to see that. And like I said, who is the audience for that video that's going to be like, oh my God, they're just like us. They have phones and they call and they put on their shoes and they sit at the table with a multi-camera crew and make weird facial expressions. By the way, if you guys want to torture me, set me up for robocalls that come in right when I'm, doing my job and I'm prepping for the show. Make sure I get a robocall that calls in and goes, "This is Kamala." That voice is disgusting. All right, so I got a little more because that wasn't enough. We had to fake it now with the beta male who I didn't realize might actually be a homosexual. Just listening to his voice, I'm not sure that Doug Imhoff is into ladies. And maybe that explains more about what's going on here. But here's a fake call with the second gentleman, aspiring first gentleman, with the first lady of Minnesota. This is Gwen Walz's call. So this is also totally impromptu. Like nobody set this up at all. Again, the audience, I'm going to show you in a second. Listen to how effeminate this man's voice. I had no idea. I actually have never listened to Doug Imhoff because I just don't care. But now that I have, I like him even less.
Hello?
Gwen?
Yes?
It's Doug Imhoff.
It's Doug Imhoff. Sorry, I'm going to play it for you, but I just had to cut that in. Gwen? It's Doug Imhoff. Oh my God. Ugh. God, these people are gross. All right, here.
Hello?
Gwen?
Yes?
It's Doug Imhoff. How are you?
Oh. Holy smoke.
Right.
Yes, thank you for taking time to call. It's so considerate.
So, Gwen, I remember getting this call 4 years ago. And I actually know what you're going through right now, but the good news is I've already been through it. So just like Dr. Biden was there for me, who had been through it, and I've been through it, I'm going to be there for you. And we're going to do this together.
Thank you.
And Kamala and Tim are going to do this together, and we are going to win this election together. And I cannot wait to see you in Philadelphia in a little bit.
Well, we are so excited and thrilled and honored, and we are ready to win. And so we will do everything, that we can. And I'm so anxious to meet you and see you both and get going here. So thank you for the call. It means everything.
All right. Well, let's get to it. I can't wait, and we're gonna have a great time tonight. And we can do anything for 90 days, right?
I think we can.
All right.
We'll see you soon.
I'll see you later, and I can't wait. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Worst phone call ever. I just cringed all the way through all that. How many times did they say words that don't mean anything? What the heck is he going to do for 90 days, by the way? We could do anything for 90 days. You know what? That was the motto that we had when we went through Pararescue Indoc. You could stand on your head and hold your breath for 90 days or 100 days or however long it was. So that's true. But you kind of have to be not a complete soft, woke pussy like that guy. All right, I said it. There it is. I have to get that off my chest. Okay, so we're looking at MSNBC. We're going to work our way through the board here. Tim Walz can reset the Democrats' deficit with a big demographic. I'm going to show you what that big demographic looks like. It's not big in the way that you think it is. It is big, no doubt about that, but it's not the big you think it is. All right, so if he can show these Americans a different path, everybody wins. This is a pep talk to leftists, to loonies, to Democrats. This is a pep talk to the people that might actually be interested in a Tim Walz. It's there's no way around this. The guy is a radical leftist. He's the worst. And he's all in on abortion. He's all in on like labor unions. He's all in on China. He has soft feelings towards America's enemies. He let his cities burn. He was a COVID tyrant. It's not that great. Also, like, did you like the way that he called Jill Biden Dr. Biden? When Dr. Biden called me? Hey, beta male, bro, JD Vance has got a little thing for you. He's going to show you how to sit when you have testicles, which is another thing that went out there in the world. There was this push by AOC. She was like, why does he sit like that? It's like, it's called balls. When you have balls, you have to sit and your legs are not on top of each other, generally speaking. Also, by the way, there's pictures of AOC sitting. I'm not saying that she's a man. I'm just saying she sits like a man sometimes because she's a weirdo. That's the line of attack. All right. So Trump has a little bit of conventional wisdom and says that basically the vice president doesn't have any impact, and everybody kind of knows that. It might have an impact on this one because of who they got. They shored up Minnesota, I guess, with this guy because he's a fairly popular governor. My friends that live in Minnesota are all looking to bail out of Minnesota. It has absolutely awful gun laws. It also is really, really tyrannical when it comes to parents' rights, which we're going to cover on one of the last stories here today. I guess if you're a person that has no kids, you know, the childless cat ladies, kind of like the people that JD Vance was making fun of, allegedly. If you're one of them, then you're super excited about baby killing and transing the kids and, you know, labor unions over businesses so we can destroy the businesses so everybody in labor, like, it's all illogical. But this is the claim that we're going to be able to unite with some big demographics, that rural people are going to look at this man, a guy who served in the National Guard and was able to achieve the rank of Command Sergeant Major only in time to skip out on the deployment that his Guard unit did to Iraq right during the surge. I was listening to a space last night on Twitter, and there were guys, including there were guys that were in the National Guard or that were deployed overseas at that time. They were like, yeah, it was a seriously kinetic rotation. It ended up getting extended to 22 months, and their Command Sergeant Major, Tim Walz, bailed on them and said, look, I came here for education. I came here to get my college paid for. By the way, those were the people that I despised the most when I went into the Air Force. I remember sitting in a basic training line. I'll go full screen for this. I'm sitting in a basic training line and they're going down the line. And look, it's the Air Force, guys. I get it. The Air Force is generally softer, but there are some people that joined the Air Force because they had a lot of hate in their heart and they needed to let it out overseas. And I was one of those guys. I was also 27. So you got the 17-year-old that's like, they're like, why did you join my United States Air Force? And they're like, I want to get my college paid for. And they're like, I want to learn a meaningful skill and become a mechanic. It's like, oh, that's not the people that I wanted to serve with. I wanted to, like, my buddies were all saying kill on the left foot when we were marching around. So for whatever it's worth, apparently Walz was that kind of guy. His dad got the GI Bill and he wanted the GI Bill and they all saw it as a way. Government is a tool to be used to be able to get the stuff that you want without having to put a lot of skin in the game. And the minute that his number got called up, and by the way, he's a Command Sergeant Major. Is this guy going to be a frontline troop? No. Bailed on him. I think that says a lot. There were some of us that were like trying to fight every bit to get into the conflict that we signed up to be a part of. And then there were guys like this, and they were like looking to not be part of it. In fact, I actually remember while I was at basic training and they were like, you know, why did you join my Air Force, whatever it was? And I was like one of the last guys because I'm an S, so we're alphabetically lined up. And I was like, I came here to kill bodies. And they were like, shh, and they pulled me aside and they're like, yo, dude, we get it. And you have a different mentality and you're obviously older than these kids. I didn't look older, by the way. At 27, like with no beard and nothing like that, I look like all the other 17-year-old punks, especially with a shaved head. And they're like, you're kind of a weird guy. Just take a breath. Basic training is going to be a joke. We'll get you into real training later, which more or less was true. In any case, is he setting the demographic? Can I show you? Can I just do it? Okay. Deficits, big demographic. Who is that demographic? What do they look like? They look like, I think this lady, she is big, but not the big that they were hoping for. Not big in population or numbers or volume of human beings.
Tell me about this getup. Well, I'm a childless cat lady that J.D. Vance wants to pick on and say that our lives don't matter and that we're miserable. And that's not true. I'm very happy. Remember her thing is I didn't fall out of a coconut tree?
As we were saying goodbye, she accidentally scratched me.
Okay, that's from the Free Press, which I believe is Barry Weiss' thing. That was a very fat lady in khaki shorts. They look like they were cargo shorts. She's wearing a cat mask. I'm describing this for the audio listeners. So for those of you who are sitting in our live chat right now, I'm not just doing this for no reason. She had a cat mask and makeup on, and she was carrying an industrial thing full of either cat litter or empty. It was a huge bucket that would have had cat litter in it. And apparently she thinks it's cool that Kamala Harris fell out of the coconut tree. That lady, that's the demographic that's most excited. Like, they're the most excited. They're the second most excited. The most excited person for Tim Walz getting in is someone who's been lobbying for Tim Walz for a while, and it's Jabal Bowman. And I think this is going to lead to where this all goes. I'm going to play you this video as well. It's not because I hate you. It's because I don't believe him either. This also seems like fake hype. I don't know who scripted it. I mean, at least he could say a lot of sentences in a row without fumbling over his words. None of these people are my people, but Jamal Bowman, who just lost his primary because he's a radical anti-Semite leftist. He's a now congressional loser. He also has a hard time distinguishing what's going on with the fire alarms. This is him getting pretty psyched up. So this is the demographic. It's fat ladies with face makeup carrying litter boxes and Jamal Bowman.
It's Walz, baby. Let's go. High school teachers, stand up. Public education, stand up. Educators, stand up. Young people, stand up. Working class people, stand up. It's Walz, baby. Let's go. Tim Walz in the building. Time to win in November, y'all. Let's go. All hands on deck. No staying at home. Let's go.
Sounds fake. It does sound fake. All right, so here's Stephen Collinson. We haven't read from him for a while, coming over from the CNN analytical page, if you will. This is the Happy Warriors, Harris and Walz. Are they happy warriors? Yuck. They propose an antidote to Trump's American carnage. They're trying to make America joyful again. Isn't that what you heard? Yeah, on that call, that fake call. They're trying to make America joyful again. She's rocking the rollout of her running mate that sent jolts of energy through a huge crowd. Now, we had Mark Naughton hanging out there. If you guys follow him on Twitter, he does some on-the-street reporting for us as well. He said that there was real energy in the crowd and that people were really excited, and there was actually a line outside of people who couldn't get in. So it's worth knowing that there are people that are excited about this. They're dumb people. They have terrible ideas. They're interested in either being lied to or they hate babies. They hate a lot of the things. We'll talk a political article real quick about sort of the positions he has, just the facts on where Walz falls and what that aligns Kamala Harris with. But they were at Temple University in Philadelphia and they packed it in. And and here's the best part. Such a scene would have been unthinkable even 3 weeks ago in a Democratic Party that believed it was doomed to a disastrous defeat with an aged president resentfully facing a revolt against his ultimate re-election bid. Right. Can we reiterate the fact that there was a candidate for many months, and in the period of 3 weeks, they have ousted the sitting president from their ticket. They have put on somebody who did not make it through any of their primaries, completely astroturf excitement about him, or about her rather, and then brought on a radical leftist, basically because they couldn't bring on Josh Shapiro because he's Jewish. That's the take we have. So now we have, what did my buddy George Hill say the other day? He said something like, now Al-Shabaab will have their own representative in the White House, which they've always wanted. So that's great. And then here's the thing that's kind of weird. So here's Collinson talking. He says, Americans have experienced a Trump presidency that threatened to tear the country apart. I'm pretty sure that was just the news media, if you guys pay attention. I don't think Trump threatened to do anything of the sort. They suffered through a pandemic that killed more than 1 million citizens. Did it? And endured a grinding years of economic insecurity caused by inflation and high grocery prices. We're going to pin that on Trump? Okay, Stephen, keep going. Tell me more. For most of the year, the former president has promised a second presidency of retribution. I'm down for that. Because of some of the tyrannical and insane things that the political left did the minute they got power. You know, like creating the suspendables and kicking us all out of our jobs. How many of you lost an economic opportunity, lost a home, lost a job, lost a paycheck, lost a promotion even if it was just, inside, if it was just a tiny little version of it. How many of you lost that because of Joe Biden's type pushing on these like COVID policies? And Walz is no different, by the way. He had a snitch line set up so that people could report on their neighbors if they were violating COVID protocols, which probably were illegal, but they definitely were immoral. The people that wanted to keep kids off playground equipment, those people, that's who it is. The childless cat ladies that were picking up the phone and running the HOA to make sure that you didn't go on any playground equipment with your kids. I have to break away for another thought here. I had a doctor who was our pediatrician in Virginia, and she was a really nice lady. We liked her a whole bunch. And we brought our son in for his pediatric checkups. And my daughters, because my son is the number 3, so he had 2 other kids. And she was like, oh my God, it must be so weird for them to see like a person, outside of their own family after they've been locked up for the last year. And we're like, what are you talking about? This was in early 2021, in March of 21. We're like, what? No, my kids just played with other kids and they went out in the neighborhood and they went to the playgrounds. And like, we lived in a nice HOA that had a bunch of parks and a bunch of these little swing sets and stuff like that. We went out all the time. We just lived our life like a lot of you did because we did the math and we're like, they're not in danger. By the way, Dad came home with COVID from being on duty. Came home and what happens? I was fine. My wife, who was pregnant, she was fine. It was all fine because we weren't in the demographic of people that were in danger. Pretty straightforward. In any case, the idea is that Joe Biden was delivering searing warnings that his rival would tarnish the soul of America, and now we have these like happy warriors, if that's what you want to believe. Listen, they're living in fantasy world. So let me go ahead to this Politico article, which I don't have a screenshot for, but I do want to actually touch on where he stands. This is kind of their politics guide to Tim Walz, abortion, unions, energy, and more. And I'm going to just read it like kind of quick, fast, and we'll just touch on the major points of it, okay? So give me 2 seconds to bring that up. And of course, now we have a paywall. Really, Politico? We can get around that. That's easy. Okay, so now we've gotten around it. So here's where they talk about him. Labor. He's a progressive labor guy, which is kind of not the position of individual business owners. It's certainly not going to be good for people that want to see America grow. He joined a picket line for the United Auto Workers. Interesting, because they seem to hate blue collar and working class people. The open immigration situation, the burning of small businesses that happened throughout Minneapolis in 2020, those aren't really that pro-business. But he's pro-labor, so he's pro the workers, including when they unite, decide to burn down the place that they work and then think that they should still have a job. They're into healthcare. The healthcare thing immediately says he's an outspoken supporter of abortion rights, which is kind of wild. And that's why he gave his daughter the name Hope. I don't know. He hoped that she would be aborted. I don't understand. He stood and been at Planned Parenthood centers when they've opened. He's hung out with Kamala Harris in centers that perform abortion. That's pretty radical stuff. That's how far left the political left has come. I had a conversation with a guy yesterday from Craigslist. I went and picked up a chair from a company that I used to work for, which is even weirder. And we're talking, and it seems like conservatives are always a little bit like sheepish about where they're from. He's like, oh, you do a podcast. Like, what's your podcast? And I was like, it's a political podcast. And I used to think that I was down the middle, but it turns out like I'm on the right because I'm just a regular dude from like 25 years ago. And my opinions, which are closer probably to Bill Clinton 1995 than like anything the Democrats have, makes Bill Clinton a far right lunatic wingnut compared to where these people are at. They're at abortion clinics and hanging out. Whatever happened to the safe, legal, and rare, we've just 25 years of insanity. That's what progress looks like. In any case, he's a supporter of LGBTQ plus rights. I've got something to show you about that. An executive order that protects the access to gender affirming care in the state. And it also banned conversion therapy in 2021. He signed something about insulin, whatever that is. Actually, the thing about kids is going to be the one that's going to be the weirdest to me. He's gone against trade deals, but he's like pro-China when it comes to energy. He has signed off on a law that includes a mandate for 100% clean electricity in Minnesota by 2040. These are people that live in a fantasy and alternate reality. There's just no other way around this. I don't know what clean energy looks like, and neither do you, and neither do the people that are driving Teslas who are sitting for like 30 minutes to charge up their Tesla and paying top dollar when I can go fill up my old pickup truck in 3 minutes and drive off and get more range than their Tesla Cybertruck, which looks stupid. It's completely absurd. But, they're talking about, they basically controlled the entire house and the state houses of Minnesota, and they've been able to pass like all this radical, stupid stuff. He's an education supporter. The happiest person in America was Randy Weingartner. If you want to side with someone like that, talk about the childless cat ladies. Those are the people that are the happiest about this guy. So he's a radical, completely radical. And people have claimed false valor or stolen valor type claims against him. It's just not, none of these things are particularly likable. So be it. This is the thing that I saw was also very interesting, because we're going to continue down this thread before we get into like some different news of the world. U.S. News and World Report. I don't usually go there very often. It says, why Harris's pick of Tim Walz have both progressives and the GOP happy. I think this is where there are so many fruitful lines of attack. It's because they've given a weaker option and they've chosen somebody who's a radical leftist. So it solidifies Kamala Harris's, sort of radical leftist credentials. She was the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate when she was being tasked to come in and be the vice president pick for Joe Biden. That was the line of attack against her. She's not running away from it. I do have kind of an interesting little thing about what that looks like when, because she's been trying to say, well, she's a little bit more down the middle and she's a prosecutor and she understands difficulty. Her version of being a prosecutor is abject tyranny. But it's worth knowing, because we're going to cover down on the Free Press article about it in a second. Progressive are psyched because they have someone that is really solidifying, like, we must be listened to. The Democratic Socialists of America had tweets out saying they have to listen to us. And that's why we've got Tim Walz. So when the DSA, the socialist types, are thrilled about this guy, and people on the right are like, yep, that's fine. We're happy to run against a Tim Walz. You should understand why. But here's Kamala Harris, who's been trying to push this idea that she's somehow a tough on crime and she's a law and order type. This is her version of law and order. And it sounds an awful lot like what I would call tyranny. You tell me what you think here.
The power I have as a prosecutor is that with a swipe of my pen, I can charge someone with a misdemeanor, the lowest level offense possible. And by virtue of that swipe of my pen, you will have to go to a courthouse and stand in line. You will have to come out of pocket and hire an attorney. You may get arrested for a few hours. You will be embarrassed in your community. You will miss time from coming onto the Google campus. All because with the swipe of my pen, I've charged you with a crime, which I may choose to dismiss 2 weeks later. It's an incredible amount of power. And you want to make sure that the people who have this kind of power are taking seriously the responsibility in terms of understanding, as much as anything, the impact on the people who will be affected by that.
Absolutely.
It's just like, I'm just threatening you, just kind of casually threatening you that I could totally destroy your life for a misdemeanor. It's true. You look at people like Steve Baker, our friend in Suspendable, who's over at The Blaze. He's facing down, actual jail time because the federal government has now decided that they have that power. ABC News and their little section from 538, which is their sort of like polling and analytical end, has said that he was the safe pick, but he's not going to give any electoral boost. I think that's probably true. I don't know how safe he was. I mean, he's nuts when it comes to, if you wanted to go out there and get the center of America jazzed up, it's not going to be Republicans like who are farmers that are going to be interested in this dude. Maybe you've locked up a state that was pretty blue to begin with. They said he's a 60-year-old. By the way, he's 60, and so is Kamala. I thought he was much older. He looks a lot older, doesn't he? He's white. He's a male. He's a former teacher. He's an Army National Guardsman, and he's a congressman. He did, 6 terms in Congress? He went from 2008, and I think his last run was in 2016 when he was victorious, and then he went on to become the governor in 2018. He's the first Democratic presidential or vice presidential nominee since 1980 who didn't attend a law school. So, just a man of the people, just a regular dude who just happened to be get a teaching certificate. I don't know. The thing that I found more interesting was the Free Press talking about all the wrong people are celebrating Tim Walz. And that's kind of where the Jamal Bowman thing comes in. That's where the crazy cat lady story comes in. Before we get into this story, let me just talk about somebody who probably does not back this up. They're in PA. It's Mad Hat Jerky. You guys can support us by going to madhatjerky.com/Kyle. Use the promo code KYLE for 20% off checkout, so you get some money off on a great product. It's an American business run by a teenager. He's like 18 years old. Started the business when he was 11 with his family. You know, the thing that Americans used to do, they would go out there and they would try to overcome barriers. I guarantee that they've had to deal with a lot. He's got actual employees. He's got more employees than most of you ever did when you were 18. I think he's got like 20 plus employees. They make an outstanding product. That's the real key. If you make a good product, people want it. If you make a crappy product, socialists have to make you get it. MattHatJerky.com/KYLE. Put that at the end of the website and you guys will be able to get our discount. 20% off is definitely not nothing, particularly in this economy. And it's an outstanding product. It is a high protein, high taste, low carb to no carb. You can get keto friendly versions and you can get USDA prime steak on there. It's like steak in a bag. Check them out 100%. And we appreciate you do that. Thanks, Rose, for putting that in the chat. I know you do it every time. I said most of the time the other day. My mother corrected me. That's what happens, y'all. This is a family show. All right. All the wrong people are celebrating for Tim Walz. Radical Democrats are energized by the progressive Veep pick. That's the problem for the party, writes Eli Lake, coming from the Free Press. And again, I guess that's where Barry Weiss is at now. When she chose Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate over Josh Shapiro, because that was kind of the last finalist, the radicals within the party cheered. They said, "We effing did it. We effing won. Let's go. Let's go." This is an Instagram account run by the staffers of Representative Summer Lee. It's not a one-off. Also, Rep. Bowman, squad legislator who lost his primary, and that's the real key. America is kind of starting to turn on him. We've got another story because Cori Bush lost hers as well. You've got people like Ilhan Omar saying this is great. You've locked up a group that was already going to be on there. What they basically decided with Tim Walz is they went the opposite way of supporting Israel. They went the opposite way of being sort of like down the middle on the Gaza thing. And they were afraid that if they put Josh Shapiro in, who's Jewish, that he couldn't run away from his Jewishness to the hard anti-Semitic left, which is a real thing. He looked like a lock because he's probably a better candidate. He's a better politician. He's much stronger. They went the way they went. It's because there are people on the political left that refer to Josh Shapiro as Genocide Josh, according to websites here and social media. They were attacking his record as being pro-Israel, and that's not good enough. Interestingly enough, the Israel wing of the Democrat Party actually was able to get Bowman out and Cori Bush out. The squad people, the radical leftists, are not doing great. Their track record is not fantastic. I'm going to give you a story a little bit later that also tells me about some of the institutional rot that's out there. It's pretty scary. But it just says it'll be interesting to see the takes with this guy. I've got J.D. Vance's take because he's a man that just kind of seems to hone in on issues. He seems way better. Doesn't mean that Tim Walz is not a talented politician if you're a radical leftist and you're into what he's into. I think JD's still more interesting. I continue to. Mostly, I just like that he was enlisted and he was like a real enlisted guy and he didn't shy away from doing the job. Here we go.
This is a guy who's proposed shipping more manufacturing jobs to China, who wants to make the American people more reliant on garbage energy instead of good American energy, and has proposed defunding the police just as Kamala Harris does. I think it's interesting, actually. They make an interesting tag team because, of course, Tim Walz allowed rioters to burn down Minneapolis in the summer of 2020, and then the few who got caught, Kamala Harris helped bail them out of jail. So it is more instructive for what it says about Kamala Harris, that she doesn't care about the border, she doesn't care about crime, she doesn't care about American energy, and most importantly, she doesn't care about the Americans who have been made to suffer under those policies.
There it is. Okay, so here's the upside, I think, for people on the right. This is why the right is excited, because they can focus on issues. They don't have to decide whether or not Kamala is black or fell out of a coconut tree or any of the nasty cackles or the weirdness that she is. And she's weird, but she has a tyrannical record when it comes to what she did. She's a liar. She's disingenuous. And then the top piece of it is like, let's just look at the records here. They were 100% behind the defund the police movement. They were behind the BLM riots. They were pro-Antifa. They wanted to bail people out of jail. They're not interested in helping American manufacturers. They're anti-business. All of these things are on the actual record. And that's where this pivot needs to happen. Less of the attacks on what a nut she is. She's nuts. Like, I think she's crazy. When you listen to her talk, like I said, it would be torturous for me to get a phone call with a robocall from Kamala Harris every morning. Torturous. But the actual records are much stronger. And this is kind of telling too. This is a clip. We played it the other day, but I'll play it one more time. If you're over here talking about how socialism is actually just neighborliness, you are a far left wingnut. And you would not have been allowed in the public discussion up until like a couple of minutes ago. This is the white dudes for Harris phone call.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Okay, no, it's not. Okay, socialism means the government comes in and forces you to give things that like they're going to refer to as like charity or goodwill, but they're doing it at gunpoint because that's the alternative. Either you do what the government says, surrender your amount in taxes so that they can do whatever they want with it, or the alternative is you can go to prison or you can deal with an armed standoff with law enforcement, because that's what socialism really looks like. And we've seen the record of socialism. It's bad. It is not good. We have it in this country, and the more that we have, the worse this country has been. I don't want to give my money to the government. I worked for the government. I know how bad it is. I would have ended my own job when I was an FBI agent. Do you guys understand that that was like the thing that made me so weird to people around me? I hated the federal government. I felt like there's a necessary evil there, and I'd rather be staffed with people like me who would 100% go, you know what? Let's shut it all down. If they would have let me shut it down the second week at the FBI Academy, knowing that I didn't have a job, I would have done it. That's how radical I am about hating government. It doesn't mean that there's not a need for some things. There just turns out to be not a need for the FBI, and that was pretty apparent to me. I'm going to be in there. I'm going to make sure that I have that job. And the joke was, and this is what my buddy used to always say, he said, the longer that you held the badge, the longer that I hold the badge is the longer that we don't see some transgender loony coming in and taking that badge and having the authorities that we have. At least we know what to do with it. And at least we're not going to abuse it, which is true. That is true. That is where we sat. I'm going to play you guys something else here. This is the thing that makes me the least comfortable. And this is the stuff that he should own. Kamala Harris should have to own. She doesn't have kids. Walz does. How about this one? This is Leah Fink, or Finky. I have no idea, and I don't actually care. This is a man with purple or pinkish hair who made history as the first man dressed up as a woman to be elected to the Minnesota state legislature. This is the article I got was from some tranny news organization. I don't really care about that. But this was a bill that was pushed. You're going to see more about this in a second. Section 2, Minnesota statutes from 2022, Section 363 Alpha 03, subsection 44. I'll retweet this on social media so you guys can see it. I'll take these screenshots. They amended the definition of the word sexual orientation. Sexual orientation means having or being perceived as having an emotional, physical, or sexual attachment to another person without regard to the sex of that person, or having or being perceived of having an orientation for such attachment. What did they get rid of? Or having or being perceived of having the self-image or identity not traditionally associated with one's biological male or femaleness. Sexual orientation does not include a physical or sexual attachment to children by an adult. They removed the part that said, quote, sexual orientation does not include a physical or sexual attachment to children by an adult. They soft-coded pedophilia into the definition of sexual orientation. Do you know how insanely radical that is? And these are the people that Walz are hanging with and signing bills into law. This was passed. This is now the case in Minnesota. And then here's some fawning coverage of it with a so-called trans 6-year-old. I've got a 5.5-year-old and a 7-year-old at home. None of them can make these decisions. By the way, my kids are much smarter than these clowns and know how to talk into a microphone. But I just want to play this for you because this is truly radical stuff. This is the kind of thing that the Kamala Harris Walz ticket need to answer for.
Also standing in that sea of people, a parent, transparent about his family.
My partner Gretchen and I are here today because we are parents of a trans child.
Their child is 6 years old, and she was as excited to be at a boring capital on spring break as any 6-year-old kid could be. Squirming and fidgeting her way through speeches, hardly aware her existence as why her parents drove 5 hours today to speak publicly.
It's 100% personal. I mean, the safety, the happiness of our child is it couldn't be more personal.
Asher, why are we here today?
For trans rights.
For her rights to be her.
As you can see from this interview,
I can't force my kids to do anything here. Asher has trusted us enough. She believes in our love enough that she has invited us in to see her whole self. And if we don't love her that much, the opposite would happen, where we wouldn't get to know everything about her. And so we're lucky, we're blessed, and we love her.
So much they came to the People's House this morning to talk about her, the person, in a room reserved for talks about politics.
I hate every one of these people. They are all on their way to hell. There's no question in my mind that if you've done this to your child, there is something so sick and wrong with you. Steve Friend talks about it. These are the women that are willing to neuter their children and ruin their reproductive future for what? So that they can impress their friends at some mom's brunch? There is no amount of disgust that is going to properly describe this sort of behavior. And that beta, weak, pathetic man standing up there saying, well, my partner Gretchen and I, shut it.
Già troppa frociaggine.
There's so much of this, and America doesn't like it. And maybe we'll actually see some sanity. I don't know that we're going to have a legit real election out there, but this stuff is truly crazy. Interestingly enough, Cori Bush just lost her Democratic primary. Why? Because Cori Bush is selfish, and she says all the dumbest things possible. She doesn't get a chance to do it again. I have no idea if the Democrat replacement for her is going to be better if they turn out to win, which I'm sure they will in that district. But I'll take a change. I'll take that East win. We can't let these people be in charge of children. God, it's so gross. Like, there's nothing more disgusting to me. All right. Let's move on to some sort of like national news. We'll kind of tie this thing up because I've belabored this as long as I care to. Here's another fun one. Talking about liars and frauds. Pakistani nationals charged with an alleged plot to assassinate Donald Trump and other public officials, says the DOJ. Oh, yeah, well, we'll just take them on their word. This is the same people that said that misinformation, disinformation, malinformation are election crimes when they're not actually crimes. Those people? Got it. ABC News reporting this guy's name is Asif Merchant. He flew from Pakistan to the United States to find hitmen. That sounds real, doesn't it? Isn't that what you would do? You could reach out on the internet, or you could fly to the United States where the DOJ would get you. And then you would try to find a hitman in the U.S. to kill Donald Trump. Suddenly, the DOJ is going to care about this. And they're like, oh, yeah, we were on this the whole time. Like, that's why we couldn't catch the guy Thomas Crook. So we were too busy trying to catch up, international assassin hirers. We think this is a twist on the playbook. Because this guy flew in from Pakistan to the United States with money. And the person he contacted was a confidential human informant. A confidential human source working for the FBI. Now, we're going to get into this long form with Steve Friend because we have a much bigger take on this, but I want you to know that my initial impression on this is weird flex on the playbook. And you guys remember the playbook. The playbook is whatever your worst ideas are on the internet, somebody from the FBI is listening to them. They're going to encourage you. They're either a source or they're an undercover online, and they're going to go ahead and try to empower you to carry out your stupidest, most violent, dumb ideas in order to get a terrorism statistic for the Bureau. And they're willing to give you all the things, including a hitman. Oh, you need a hitman? Fine. This guy's plan apparently involved hiring killers. He had some kind of a code. Totally normal for Pakistani people to come up with a code that was based on a t-shirt, a flannel shirt, a heavy jacket. These are all the levels of the operation. Wanted to hire 25 people who could be a protest. That would be a distraction so they could do the reconnaissance, send a woman in as a murderer, as a recon person, 25 people as a protest, and then actually have a hitman to do the murder. So this is a very elaborate plan that I'm sure he totally came up with on his own and didn't have any federal information on. Again, how are you going to hire 25 people in the United States when you're from Pakistan? And why is it that and they paid an assassin $5,000 up front, which turns out to be an FBI source as well, undercovers. So he tried to hire sources of or hitmen to do his assassination, and it turns out they were all undercover FBI agents. Oh, really? What are the odds that you tried to hire an assassin and that assassin just happened to be an FBI agent? The answer is basically none. There's tons of people that will do violence for you for almost nothing. There's a bunch of crazy people. I'm quite confident. Justice is Blonde in the chat asking, do we grab them to distract? Yes, of course they're doing it to distract. And here's another little piece of it. Here's CBS doing their reporting, talking about it's all about the online violence. It's all about the angry Trump supporters. We're trying to distract from what's really going on in this country. The attempted assassination of Donald Trump spurred a huge spike in calls for violence and civil war online. Of course, it's going to be the people on the political right who are the most dangerous. You know, the people that didn't react at all other than to support Donald Trump and raise money for him. Meanwhile, this article, which is totally not biased, it's full of quotes from a group called Moonshot, which does domestic violent extremism, or DVE. They're monitoring that online. So these are rabid leftists that are basically just doing internet trolling. And then also Everytown, you know, the people that hate guns. And this is Jonathan Feinblatt, who's the president of Everytown, that grassroots organization that's just paid for by a billionaire. It says, quote, in the aftermath of mass shootings, not the mass shooting of Donald Trump, by the way, just generally speaking, we often learn that the shooter was radicalized with help from the vile content that he found on sites like YouTube, and yet the leaders of these platforms consistently refuse to crack down on users who violate their own policies. We are calling on these companies to put public safety ahead of traffic numbers and proactively monitor spaces that are breeding grounds for hate and violence. Do you remember what we started talking about? The fascist creep, this guy, this stuff, the Global Alliance for Responsible Media. It's all tied together. These people want to control the way that you think, and the way they think they can do that is by controlling what you read and what you hear and what you know. That means that they have to control the media. And that's why they have to say anything that goes against it, particularly malinformation, which is inconveniently true stuff, the things that we like to talk about here. The control of the media is where this war is being fought. It is a war. It is a fifth generation war. That is a civil war, by the way. It's being fought by people on both sides of the aisle in this country. And we're combatants. And you, as listeners to this program, are combatants in that war. But it's not being fought in a very fair way, it turns out. It's being fought by crazy people who think that they should be able to co-opt all the means they're moving upstream, not about whether they are going to fight for the right idea and you decide whether socialism is neighborliness or whether that Kamala was a prosecutor or a tyrant. None of those things are they're not on the docket. They want to astroturf you with fake calls between these people. They want to give you this fake excitement from Jabal Bowman. They want to show you that cat ladies are people too. Trans kids exist at the age of 6. All this stuff is nonsense. It is truly made up. And there's no way you can buy into it, but they want to make sure that it's the only thing that you hear. And that's why this stuff bothers me. Last little thing here that I didn't see covered anywhere else, but CBS did. So good on that. The UN agency has fired 9 staffers, finding out that they were involved in the October 7th attack on Israel. Remember that? Like actual terrorism? They fired 9 members of their agency for Palestinian refugees, known as UNRWA. Interesting. 9 of them were supposedly found or may have been involved in the Hamas-led attack on Israel on October the 7th. Luckily, they didn't choose a Jew to be the vice president candidate for the Democrats, right? They would hate to do that. They have to align with the radicals, who apparently have also even got people inside the UN, which, of course, the United States government is helping pay for. Israel showed some intelligence documents, shared it with CBS, showing that a number of Western news outlets have documented these allegations against about a dozen employees. There are 9 that were actually fired, 2 allegedly actually participating in the kidnapping. This is actually not that new. The ones that participated in the kidnapping, that was actually determined earlier. Isn't that troubling, though? Because that's where your tax dollars are going. That and supporting Ukrainian pensions. Don't worry about America. These people are not focused on the things that make the most sense. So I find that to be pretty scary and pretty bad. We're going to wrap it up with that today. Let me, our palate cleanser is going to reference one of our sponsors, at least in a funny way, I think. So I will just tell you guys, if you want to support the program, you're interested in a high quality product, you want someone that's not going to try to censor your news, that actually is going to pay, and they've never once told us what we can or can't say. They've never once told us what's off limit. PatriotCoolers.com is the website. Patriot is the brand that you will find on all of their products. You're not a Yeti. You're not an Igloo. You might be a Patriot. If you are, you can support those colors and you can support those products. PatriotCoolers.com. Use our promo code. They'll save you 10%. So that's not nothing. It lets them know that we sent you along. We appreciate you guys doing that. And they also support vets. You know, things that you might care about too. People who need a little help with the mobility at their house. They've given over $400,000 from their profits to helping Americans who put it all on the line for you and for me, and some of you are in our chat, and we know that. We appreciate it. I'm looking at you, Eric Jason. Appreciate what you guys have done. I'm looking at you, Tack Penis. Even if we disagree, I appreciate that you guys are Americans that wrote that check. And Patriot Coolers does too, patriotcoolers.com. Okay, the funny sort of connection to that is they do have merch over there, and their merch just says Patriot, which is not a big deal for you to wear that. If you wanted to buy a hat that said Patriot, nobody would think twice about it. They may or may not know that it's a cooler company, but this is kind of funny. This is coming from George Hill. So we're going to wrap this up. I'll do one little palate cleanse for you on this about coolers and what your hat might be saying about you. Might be interested in changing out your merch, and then we're going to do a 5-star review, and then we'll do one more, and we'll get out of here. Here we go.
I saw a guy with a hat on the other day. It said, "I'm an alcoholic. My favorite thing in the world is drinking outdoors, and I want everyone to know it." Well, it didn't say all that. It just said Yeti. That's what it meant. Come on, nobody loves coolers that much. That's like a crackhead wearing a hat that says mirrors. No, I'm just super psyched about mirrors, you guys.
He's right. If your hat says Patriot, no one's going to question that. They might want to get into a fight with you on a college campus. I just saw Parker say that. Who said that? Oh, Anejo Dave said that. Yeah, there's a real possibility you might get into a fight over it, but it's not going to be the fight that you're going to be upset about or scared about having. But if it says I like to drink outdoors and I'm really into Yeti coolers, they do have nice colors. I will tell you that. Yeti is an Austin company, so we don't hate them. We just like something better. Houston company, still Texas. Still America. All right, here's a 5-star review from one of our fantastic listeners. This is from Julie G. Martindale. Thank you so much. Fan favorite, 5 stars. Needed this laugh today. Thank you. Red, white, and blue hearts. We appreciate you, Julie. Thanks for listening. Thank you for leaving us a 5-star review. If you guys want to have yours read on the show, please go to Apple and hit the review. Leave a review. Leave it 5 stars and make it funny or make it sweet and short. That's okay too. One of you just said something about pissing in the Kool-Aid. I will read that soon. Really appreciate all of the 5-star reviews. And we are well over 1,000 right now, so we're going to continue to keep growing, but only if you guys go out there and leave them. You can leave more than one. If there's something that tickles your fancy, if there's something that you really liked, make sure you guys leave that one. I got one more palate cleanse for you. But before we finish up, we do have a program that you guys can support us over on Rumble. People have gone over and subscribed. Really grateful for that. If you guys want to drop your Rumble subscription and take it over to Locals, which we can only do 30 minutes until we have 100 people on Locals. When we have 100 supporters on Locals, we'll be able to do some really fun stuff. So make sure you're going to KyleSeraphin.com. I don't plug this very often, but that's where you join the Locals community. And I am putting out some content there that doesn't go anywhere else. It's just going to be for the local subscribers. KyleSeraphin.com will redirect you to our Locals page, and you guys can go out there and do that. And one of the things that I just threw up there today is our support from a company called Shield Arms. If you go to shieldarms.com, it will be in the show notes. So go down there and click on that. You can save 5% on any of the things they have. I'm going to show you guys that I actually carry their products every single day. You'll get 5% off using my name, KYLE. This is one of the magazines that I carry as my reload. This little guy right here fits right up into this point in a Glock 43 or a 43X. It'll fit into a, 43X and a 48. It's called the S15 magazine. This little guy right here holds 20 rounds, which is more than almost any full-size pistol you'll see. They do an awesome product, and they're based out of Kalispell, Montana. Actually, they're in Big Fork, Montana. Great folks, and they've just started reaching out and saying, hey, we're ready to ramp up and do something with you guys. So KYLE at shieldarms.com will also save you some money there. Here's a last little joke for you to laugh about. Are you working out? Are you getting prepared? Are you getting fit? It's one of the things we talk about on the Locals. Let's get strong. This little kid's going to shame you. Make sure you've gone to the gym today or lifted something heavy.
Go to the gym. I don't have time. Stop watching videos then. Go to the gym. But my muscles are sore. Your muscles are not big enough to be sore. But, not being pathetic. Just go to the gym. Wow, the pump is crazy.
Mostly I love it because that little guy looks just like my 3-year-old. Bodie looks just like him. Super cute kid. Seriously, go to the gym because you got to protect your kids from weirdos and tranny lovers and the people that are trying to make pedophilia normal. That's what's on the ticket right now. That's the end of our show for the day. God bless all of you out there. We'll see you again. I'm probably going to be off tomorrow because I'm going to be flying off to West Virginia to do Timcast. So you guys can catch me tomorrow evening on Timcast IRL, and we'll be back on Friday with a Friendly Friday, and so we'll make that the thing. So let's just plan on not being here tomorrow. I may leave the chat open for the entire 48 hours, and you guys can come in here and talk about how I wasn't here. Thanks so much. All right, we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.
All right, I'm demoing a couple pieces of equipment right here. We're going to be using a Shield Arms modified Glock 43X. Normally this holds 10 plus 1 in the magazine, but because we're using the Shield Arms, we're going to make ready. This is a 15-round magazine. Now this drill setup is going to be set up with only 1 in the mag. So there we go right there. You can see we've got the mag well, and we've got their magazine release as well. So we're going to make that ready like this. Otherwise, it's a stock Glock. It's going into their junk sack, which is what I'm shooting out of right here. And this is one of their 15-round magazines with a +5 base plate extension. So we've got this drill set up with 1 in the gun, an empty magazine otherwise, and 20 more that we're going to draw out of. Shoot ready. Stand by. Go nice and slow. First one's out. Drop. Holster up.